right, ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? My name is Denonu, and you guys are listening to my opinion here. And we're going to be talking about Wandavision. This is going to be an episode kind of review of the newest episode that just came out today. But since we haven't did one of these before, I'm going to give my overall thoughts of the series from the beginning up until this point, and then I'm going to get into my opinions of the current episode. WandaVision as a whole is a very, I guess you could say it's a very unique TV show. Coming into it, the only thing that I was really expecting was just more story about Wanda and Vision. You know, just like everybody else, I had no idea what this was going to be.
Because you are.
And when I first seen, what was it, the first 2 or 3 episodes, that kind of turned me off. I remember watching all of the older shows that they were making fun of or riffing off of, or I guess paying homage to, really. I remember watching a lot of that when I was coming up. So that bored the hell out of me, to be honest. And I am a fan of Marvel as a whole, you know, reading the comic books, the movies, I've seen all of it, right? So when I got into this, I'm like, okay, if it's boring me, somebody who this is, let's say, tailored for, it's probably not going to keep anybody. And definitely not a fan of the older TV stuff, but I guess it does kind of set the tone. I'm not sure why they went with the whole TV aesthetic, because you got they're making them look like TV shows. The the barrier that Wanda puts, you know, everybody in, that looks like a static TV screen. You got the TV signal that Sword can see, and you can see where they themed it like that, you know, across the show. And I guess that's cool to be different. So maybe that's why they're doing it, to try to make the show stand out. But as somebody who knows the source material of a lot of the stuff, you know, of the MCU and everything, you can see where they're cutting pieces and putting things together to fit their ongoing universe. Like Monica Rambeau, her character is Photon, Captain Marvel from the 80s and, you know, coming into the 90s. And as soon as they had her, like as soon as I heard her name, I was like, oh, okay, they're bringing her back from the Captain Marvel movie. And she walked by the office and it said Photon. And I was like, oh, okay, so she already has superpowers? Because I know her character from the comics, right? But that was something that they didn't really say until the current episode. And I'm going to get into that once we talk about that. But when I seen that, and I think when the Sword director was like, terrestrial missions only. So that tells me, okay, so she uses her powers to go off planet. I mean, is that, you know, what they're establishing? But I think it was just alluding to that, oh, she may be an astronaut and she goes up and comes down, even though that's never been seen in MCU. But I like the fact that they're bringing that in, because I guess if people don't know her character, they have no idea who she is, that she's a superhero, all of that stuff. So as soon as I seen her, I was like, okay, they're going to probably give her superpowers at some point, which they did in the current episode that we're going to get to in a bit. But outside of that, I'm liking that they're bringing in older side characters from the movies, like the Asian guy that was an Ant-Man. And what's her name? I think Darcy from the Thor movies. I like that they're bringing them back to do more stuff, and so that it kind of makes the show feel connected to the movies. That's kind of what they should have did with the Netflix stuff, but that was ran by a whole nother person and they didn't want to do what he did. So makes a whole lot of sense. But outside of that, with the story of how it's going, what really intrigued me since, I want to say, episode 3 is less about the TV stuff, but more about the conspiracy. What the hell is going on? Why is Wanda doing this? I had my guesses. You know, honestly, it's to keep Vision on. That's the whole point. If you know her powers from the comics, it kind of makes sense. It's almost as if she's growing into her comic book counterpart, but there's somebody that she's either working with or someone who gave her this ability to alter reality, because that's not something she's had in MCU. They tried to science explain it away, which was cool. I like that. I like the fact that they're tailoring it in. They're just not saying, oh, Wanda has these reality warping powers. And I like the fact that they're making fun of the stuff in the MCU. Love that a lot. Like when Pietro came in there and he was like, oh, what happened to your accent? And he's like, well, what happened to yours? You know, they're the side jokes that the audience asks when they watch the MCU movies, like, oh, what about this and what about that? It's like his episode really was real good. I like that. Sword, they're changing from the comics. Instead of being basically the Shield version of space, you know, threats and stuff like that, they're changing it to sentient weapons. And that sounds stupid as hell, to be honest, when I think about it. But I guess in the vein of the MCU, you can say WandaVision, Thor, any of those high-end tier, and I'm going to use this X-Men term, but the Omega level mutants and threats, you know, the top tier ones. They're using that as a term for sword, you know, so it's kind of weird that you have a whole organization set up to that, but I guess, you know, maybe they built it in the 5 years since Endgame or something. You know, maybe after the Thanos snap, maybe humanity came together and built that. It's just like Shield though. Why not just bring back Shield? You know, they did it in the TV show. And that was canon to the MCU, so they can, or at least up until a point, but they can, you know, just bring back Shield and Sword, you know, because Shield was still kicking around in the TV show. And like I said, up until, I want to say what season, up until the Inhuman stuff, I would say all of that's canon. Because technically, I mean, you still have the Inhumans in the MCU with what happened in the TV show. So they're probably not going to want to use none of that. I don't know why, because it's a perfect betting ground for a lot of stuff that they had from the comics and everything. But if they didn't want to do that, if they just wanted to cut it short, you can still bring back Shield. I mean, because that's essentially what they did. The last canon thing I remember in Agents of Shield was when, or prime example, in Age of Ultron, when Nick Fury showed up with the helicarrier at the end and he was like, oh, it's something we pulled out of mothballs, or he said something like that. Coulson was the one who found that and gave that to him, because they found out where Shield had its bunker of like stuff that they had, you know, just in case shit went wrong. And they passed that information along to Fury. Also in that movie, in the beginning, when the Avengers are assaulting the Hydra compound where the last Hydra guys were, Coulson and his team was the ones who found out that, you know, they found that data and gave it to the Avengers. So you can easily roll that in at you know, at some point. I'm not saying I got to do the whole thing, but I wish that they would connect that show with this too. Like if Coulson would have came back instead of Agent what's his face, the Asian guy, that would have been cool. Or if, let's say, if Coulson had a cameo in this to kind of roll that over, I would have loved that. Or hell yeah, bring in Daisy. She was a hacker. I mean, you know, why, you know, have her instead of Darcy, you know, if they wanted to do that. But if you wanted to take the show by itself, WandaVision is not a bad show. It's just not fully engaging with a lot of the themes. To me, and that's probably just because I'm weird like that, but to me, it's better as a conspiracy show. Like, what the hell is going on? It makes you ask that question the whole time you're watching it. The moment they answered it, that's when that conspiracy, that draw is going to die out, you know? And they answered it a little bit with this current episode. I like the fact that Paul Bettany is doing his damn thing. Always been a fan of all of his movies. I've seen Priest. I've seen that one movie with the diner he was in where he played the angel. That was all, you know, cool. I'm a huge fan of his, and he seems to be getting in this a hell of a lot more range out of Vision because he's not just a stoic character that doesn't really say anything. I like the fact that he has his, or has the ability to do that, to grow the character. I'm hoping he lives out of this, because with the way the show is going, it's like he's dead, you know, in real life. So at the end, they have to kind of rework that. And I think that's where they're going. But it would suck if he just got to the end of the series and, oh, Wanda took down the bubble and he died. Like, I would really hate that. I like the fact that they're bringing in Wanda's and Vision's kids from the comics. Not really sure what they're gonna do with that. They're probably gonna kill them off. Technically, they don't exist, you know. So, but they could roll them over too. And if Marvel, I'm assuming they're gonna want to do like a Young Avengers kind of thing. You know, they got to make that Teen Titans, you know, because I don't know why comic companies do that, but they have to feel, or both Marvel and DC, they feel like they have to make a teen book to capitalize on that audience. When a lot of times, like what got me and a lot of people in the comics as kids were Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, the adult characters. So I was like, why do you feel like you have to make a teen book? You know, you're not writing a coming of age romance novel, but apparently both Marvel and DC, they always have to either make a Teen Titans book or a Young Avengers book to capitalize on kids and stuff. I just find it super weird. And, you know, I get what they're doing as a company, but it's like, you don't need to do that, but maybe they feel like they need to get that money. But who knows what they're going to do with Wanda's and Vision's kids at the end. You know, they could kill them. They can somehow magic them alive like they did, you know, like they're maybe planning to do with Vision, and then have them stay around. Because I think they're doing the Miss Marvel movie and a few other things that's going to lead into like a Young Avengers thing. It will make sense. All they would need is to bring in that black Captain America guy. I think his name is Patriot or something like that. They can bring him in, and there you go. You have your Captain America, you have your speed person, you have your magic person with Wanda's kids, and Miss Marvel. You know, that's 4 people right there. So you can have, you know, have another character or somebody else, and then there you go. Make your kids' teen movie. They can easily do that. Trying to think other things that I've liked. Really like that episode with Pietro. That was damn good. I like the fact that episode had a lot of Easter eggs in it too. Like with his tombstone, the character outfits, they finally put them in. Granted, they were just Halloween costumes for the show, but like that episode a lot. That's probably my favorite one so far. In this current episode, though, just because we got to touch on that, they pretty much explained more of what's going on. Wanda just left Vision out there laying on the grass. I was like, damn, you didn't even bring your man home? just welcome him to bed without him. Talking about, where's Vision? If he don't want to be here, then he don't have to be. Like, damn. But it basically showed Monica Rambeau, I guess, getting her superpowers, and they kind of worked that in there by every time somebody passes through the barrier, their genetic code is being rewritten. And as soon as they took the x-ray of her and it was like, oh, we're not getting anything, and like 2 or 3 episodes ago, I was like, oh, okay, so she's gonna get superpowers. So that's how they're gonna retcon it. And they did. Doesn't explain why nobody else is getting superpowers, because like I'd be going in and out of that barrier getting superpowers too, just saying. Because technically everybody in there should have their DNA written at some point, because if you're in there or if you cross the barrier, then your DNA should be overridden. A lot of people were saying that's a cool way to bring in X-Men and stuff like that, but I guess you could do that, but there's plenty of other ways you could do it better. So they're probably not going to do that with the show. But yeah, they didn't really explain a whole lot other than that. Vision unlocked Darcy's mind, so now they're traveling back to town. Wanda is preventing them. Wanda is breaking down. I like the whole fourth wall breaking moments in this episode, to be honest. Especially where she told her kids, like, oh, you expect me to have all the answers, but I don't. So I was like, damn, more parents need to tell that to their kids. But I thought that was pretty cool. Monica coming back in with powers. Her powers look kind of lame so far, but I'm assuming they're going to go with the spectrum. You know, her power is based around energy and light and all that stuff. That's why I think when she came back in the barrier, she was seeing like the electromagnetic fields of the power lines and stuff like that. So I'm assuming that she's seeing other spectrums of energy. So I could see where they're going with that. I don't know if they're going to do anything with her character outside of this. I would assume so, because why do it if you're not going to do anything with it? Maybe they may roll her into whatever the next version of the Avengers movies is going to be. Without Captain America and Iron Man, and you need a new team. You know, you don't have Black Panther, Captain America, or Iron Man, so you have to make new characters. Or is she going to be like the what was her name? I want to say Rosario Dawson from the Netflix shows. She played a character called Night Nurse, and she basically would help the heroes and patch them up in between, you know, their fights and stuff in their shows. She was the one or two characters that they had that would bridge all of the shows together. So if maybe Monica Rambeau was going to be that for the Disney Plus TV shows, it could be something like that too. But more than likely, they're probably bringing her in, giving her powers. They're probably not going to give her a whole lot to do, to be honest. Maybe she fights Wanda or something. Maybe she's going to be the character that does that at the end. You know, if they have a big fight, you know, they may not even have a big fight at the end, but maybe they're just planning to give her another show once all of this plays out. They haven't announced anything yet with her, but if audiences like her character enough, I don't see why they wouldn't do that. That would be stupid. So they can easily do that. Trying to think of something else that really happened in this episode. It wasn't really a whole lot. It was just explaining, you know, a little bit more. I think at the end they said Agnes was behind it all, so everybody thought that already. A lot of people were saying that they're going to probably bring in Mephisto because of the 666 and the devil references and stuff. I don't know if they're going to do that per se. I mean, it would make more sense to bring in, what's the guy they're going to be fighting in Doctor Strange? Nightmare? You know, he was a character, a bad guy who could, like, every bad dream that everybody had in life gives him power. So he would kind of force people to have bad dreams all the time and make them stuck in their own little perpetual nightmare. So maybe that's what the next Doctor Strange movie is going to be about, because Wanda's going to be in that too. And that's going to be the storyline of that movie, you know? So maybe at the end of this, Doctor Strange comes in, he teaches her how to use her powers a little bit more, and that leads into the multiverse of madness. That's where I'm thinking they're going with it. But Agnes was somebody who always did weird things throughout the episodes. And they never told you what was going on with her. Like, why was she the only character that to break through the fourth wall and stuff like that earlier before Wanda started flipping out? And I guess now it makes sense because she's the one that's behind it all, as they told you in a jingle at the end of the at the end of today's episode. But my question is who is she? Like, I know who she is in the comic. Is she just Agatha Harkness, or is it somebody pretending to be Agatha and using her as, let's say, like a character? I think somebody's using her as a character, or maybe, let's say if it is, let's say like Nightmare, because that's who I would assume it will be. Mephisto, like if they bring in Mephisto now, it would just confuse things, honestly, because you would have to explain who Mephisto is and all of that. And unless they're setting him up to be a big bad later, why even talk about him? You know, so I'm assuming it's a Nightmare. Maybe Nightmare is either pretending to be Agatha, and that's how, you know, why she's there, or maybe Nightmare is telling Agatha what to do, and that's the reason why she's there. But it could be that maybe Wanda worked with Agatha or worked with Nightmare or something, and that gave her the extra power to create the bubble in the TV show. And it may be, and this is just me speculating, it could be that maybe that split her psyche. So you have the household Wanda doing all the household stuff with Vision, and then you have the other Wanda that's stay out of the bubble, the one that's talking to the sword guys and stuff like that. So it makes a whole lot of sense that she has a fractured psyche. That's why she doesn't know what's going on, because all of that was being done by the other Wanda. But then it's like, as the more it breaks down, she gets more and more control of her powers, and that's why she can still use her abilities in the TV show as the other form of her, you know. That makes a whole lot more sense than just, oh, Wanda's doing everything, but she magically doesn't know what happened. You know, it's like, that's kind of stupid. You have to explain why she doesn't remember what happened. I also like the fact that they're doing more with Sword and Vision and a lot of stuff where it's like they're rebuilding him for something. I think they said a little bit more about that too. Not sure where they're going with that, to be honest. Maybe they're just trying to bring him back, and that's what I'm hoping at the end of this series. I'm hoping that Vision stays on board and he's just like a kind of not necessarily a rebooted character, but he doesn't remember the events of Infinity War and Endgame. You know, like he remembers everything, let's say like from now going into the future, but he just doesn't remember everything else. So that's what I'm hoping to do with his character. And then, you know, maybe him and Wanda can have a thing, but again, they have to explain how they bring him back, because he's missing his power source. So you have to write that in there. I'm assuming that's why he can't leave the bubble, because if he leaves, he dies. You know, he goes back to his regular form. So how are they going to save him at the end? You know, I'm assuming they would have to make like a magical MacGuffin some kind of way, or just at the end, he realized that, hey, look, I'm already dead. You know, you have to let go, you know, and that's how they kind of leave him be. Like maybe at the end, she lowers it down and, you know, he dies and she has to just move on. You know, it could be something like that too. I'm hoping that's not the case, because like I said, I really love Paul Bettany as a character and as an actor. And I hope that they, you know, use him to his full potential and put him in other things. But who knows, YouTube, who knows? So that's just my thoughts on WandaVision as a show and as the current episode. Just to summarize real quick, I liked it once they started explaining the conspiracy stuff and once they got into the mystery of the show. Before that, I could have turned it off and not cared. But I think the show was decent. It's not the greatest show out there, not by any means. It's not the most dramatic show, hell no, by nothing. But it's still a good, you know, good watch. I'm watching it every week, you know, and I'm enjoying myself once they got into it. So I'm hoping, I think they got like what, 2 episodes to go after this, maybe 3. I think it's like 9 or 10 episodes. So hoping they, you know, end on a good note. So far it's doing good. I don't know how they're going to end it though. They have to end it on like a really good, not necessarily a positive note, because I don't think it's going to end positively, because, you know, Doctor Strange 2 is, you know, going to happen. So they have to end it and leave the audiences fulfilled. That's essentially what they have to do. If they can do that, then the show is going to do good and it's going to be remembered very well. If it bombs the ending, then everybody's only going to remember it for the old TV show stuff and nothing else. So I'm hoping that they stick the landing like a gymnast at the Olympics, and that springboards them into future content, because then that'll get everybody on board with this Disney Plus Marvel TV show stuff that they're doing. And then as they come out with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I think I want to say like next month or whenever that takes place, then they're going to easily roll that in, have that ready, and the audiences will move from one show to another. So I'm hoping that they can do that. So anyways, fellas, that's just my opinion on things. If you guys want to hear me ramble and talk about anything else, whether it be a TV show, YouTube video, a movie that you personally seen, let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see if I can make that happen. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful evening and be safe out there. Later.